Hi, I'm Brian with Taylor Foam, and we just wanted to show you how easy it is to install crown molding in your home. If you're like me, you've always wanted crown molding in your house, but thought it was either too difficult to install yourself or too expensive. But we're here today to show you how simple it truly is to put up crown molding in your own home. The tools that you'll need for today's work are a nice stiff bristle brush. The good cheap throwaway brushes work best. A nice soft sponge. Some type of pointing trowel or margin trowel or mud knife for putting the mud onto the foam. Some type of mixing device such as a mud masher like this for mixing your joint compound up. Some type of device for cutting your foam molding. It could be a power saw like this or just a simple hand miter box. Of course, if you want to go with corner blocks, you don't have to miter anything, so just something to cut your molding to length, and your Taylor Foam crown molding. Unlike traditional crown moldings that are nailed up, the foam molding that we're using is a simple glue up. I like to use just the sheetrock brand joint compound for gluing up the moldings. It's lightweight, it's easy to use, and it's very inexpensive. It's available to any hardware store. It comes ready mix. I like to simply put it in a bucket, use something like a mud masher or a paddle wheel to mix it up. All right, we've taken the joint compound straight out of the box and put it in here. This is still full strength. There's been nothing added to this. I like to add about 10 to 12 ounces of water to this for the application of the molding, just for workability. We're just going to pour some water in, take our mud masher, and just mix it up. If you're anything like me, you're messy when you're mixing your mud. You can see I got a little bit on my tile here. It's very simple to clean up joint compound. Even after it dries, water will reconstitute it, so you can wipe it right up, no problem. Okay, we have the mud, the consistency we want for sticking the molding to the wall. As you can see, we added about 10 or 12 ounces of water to it, and this is the consistency we have now. It's not too terribly important how thin you have the mud for sticking it. You don't want to make it too thin, but something about this consistency works well. The piece of crown we have here is a piece of simple foam crown molding. This is our 3x3 molding. You'll notice the cell structure. This is the same styrofoam that you'd see as a foam cup or ice chest. But once we're done with it today, you won't know the difference between it and a piece of traditional crown. Also included with your DVD is an instructional guide on how to miter corners. I'm using just a simple pointing trowel to put the mud on the foam here. You can use any kind of mud knife or putty knife. I just like these pointed trowels the best. So we're just going to apply a generous layer on both the top side and the bottom side of the molding. Flip this over. Apply some to the bottom side here. Notice I've just put a small amount on the very leading edge of the top and the bottom of the piece. This is all we need. We want just enough so that when we squish this molding into place that some of it oozes out onto the surface, which will help give us a nice sealed surface between the wall, ceiling, and the molding so that we don't have to caulk anything later. We've got the mud on the back of the piece. We're just going to simply stick it into place. You just want to go down and push that against the ceiling. You should have some mud squishing out. Then along down the wall. You'll notice the excess mud that's squished out here. That's exactly what we want. We want enough mud that as we push the molding into place, it oozes out onto the surface. And when we wipe this off, you'll have a nice continuous seam with your ceiling and your molding. I'd recommend starting at a corner with a mitered piece. Push the miter all the way to the corner and just work from there out. We now have this piece complete. We're ready for the next one to go up. We're just going to take some mud, apply it to that leading edge of both the top and bottom sides. Flip the molding around. If you miss, you can just go back and add a little bit in. On this piece, we're going to put some on our mitered corner here so that when we butt it up to the other corner, we've got some joint compound to help lock that corner in and make it good and smooth. Take your molding, slide it into place. Again, it should be squishing out in most areas. Of course, if it's on the wall, no big deal. We're just going to wipe it off. It comes off of just about any surface. Give it a good shove into the corner and wipe it off. If you have areas that were a little bit thin, like here, you can just take some of your excess and fill it in. The nice thing is about the foam molding and using the joint compound, if your miter's off slightly in the corner or you've got some kind of problem, you can just fill it in with excess mud. If you need to wait till it dries and come back with a little extra, you can do that as well. If not, just sponge off any excess that you have. We'll let it dry and we'll come back and brush it across the face. Unlike traditional moldings where you would back miter the piece before abutting two pieces together, you can just use a simple flat butt joint on the foam moldings. Just apply a nice generous amount of the joint compound to the molding, and then you're ready to stick it in place. Once again, we're just going to push the molding up here and just slide it into place. You'll see the excess ooze out. Just get the joints lined up. Wipe off the excess. If the joint doesn't line up quite well enough, you can always just come back later with a little extra joint compound when we brush the face and smooth that up. If you have problems with it bowing or wanting to warp out, you can take a small nail and pin it together. But this molding is going together pretty well, so we'll just leave it like it is. I like to work out of a small bucket, so I'm going to take some of this mud, which is the same consistency that we stuck the foam with. Just place some here into the bucket. If you like, you can water it down a little bit. I recommend watering it down in small portions inside the bucket versus your big batch of mud so that you've still got more mud to stick foam with later. We've let the joint compound that we stuck this up with dry for a few hours, so now we're ready to brush it out on the face. We're just going to take some joint compound, simply brush it on. You don't have to worry about getting it on too thick because we'll do it in two different coats. We'll let this one dry and we'll come back and brush another layer on so that we get it good and smooth. Be sure to get it in the corners. And remember, once this dries, you can use your damp sponge to basically get it wet again and smooth it up. So don't worry about it being rough in areas or areas where you've got it too thick or too thin. You've now seen how truly easy it is to put up foam crown molding on your own. It's lightweight, it's easy to put up, it simply glues, it's very cost effective, and you too can have a beautiful room such as this.